For 80 years, Russia's Victory Day parade on May 9th has been the most powerful military spectacle on Earth. Thousands of troops marched in perfect formation through Red Square, intercontinental ballistic missiles rolling past the Kremlin walls. The latest tanks, armored vehicles, and rocket systems on public display for the entire world to see. A visual declaration broadcast to every nation watching that Russia's military power was unmatched, unshakable, and unstoppable. This year, the tanks are not coming. Russia has officially announced that the May 9th Victory Day parade will proceed without the traditional column of military vehicles. No tanks rolling through Red Square, no armored personnel carriers, no missile systems, no public display of the hardware that Putin has spent 2 decades presenting as proof of Russian military dominance. The official explanation is the current operational situation. Read that carefully. Russia is canceling the military component of its most important annual event because of the operational situation in Ukraine. Because the equipment that would normally roll through Red Square is burning on Ukrainian soil. Because the vehicles that would demonstrate Russian military power to the world are being destroyed by Ukrainian drones faster than Russian factories can replace them. Putin built his entire political identity on the image of Russian military strength, and Ukraine just forced him to cancel the event that image depended on. To understand how significant this cancellation is, you need to understand what Victory Day actually represents inside Russia. May 9th is not just a holiday. It is the cornerstone of Putin's entire political legitimacy. The narrative that Russia defeated Nazi Germany in the Second World War, that Russian military power saved civilization itself, that the sacrifice of Soviet soldiers created a debt that every generation of Russians owes to the state, is the foundation on which Putin built his justification for everything that followed. The parade is not ceremonial. It is political. Every year, the tanks rolling through Red Square send a message to the Russian people and to the world. Russia is powerful. Russia is undefeated. Russia's military is the inheritor of the soldiers who won the greatest war in history. For 80 years, that message was delivered with hardware, with vehicles, with missiles, with the physical, tangible proof that Russian military power was real and present and overwhelming. This year, for the first time in the history of the modern Russian state, that hardware will not be there. And here is the part that makes this so devastating for everything Putin has built. The Russian government's own explanation acknowledges the reason: the current operational situation. The operational situation in Ukraine. The operational situation created by Ukrainian drones that have been destroying Russian armor, vehicles, and equipment at a rate that has left Russia without enough functioning hardware to display at its own parade. This is not a logistical decision. This is a confession. Russia's military is so degraded by Ukraine's campaign that Putin cannot put on a show for his own people without exposing how little is left. Consider what Russian families are seeing when they turn on state television this week. For 80 years, the May 9th broadcast has been the same. Columns of armor stretching as far as the camera can reach. Soldiers in perfect formation. The president standing at the reviewing stand watching hardware that represents the accumulated military investment of the Russian state pass beneath him. That broadcast told Russians a story every single year. We are powerful. We are protected. The sacrifices your grandparents made were not wasted. This year, Russian families will watch soldiers march past an empty route. They will see the reviewing stand. They will see Putin. And they will not see the tanks. Every Russian family that lost someone in Ukraine will notice the absence. Every Russian mother whose son is at the front will understand what the empty route means. The propaganda cannot explain away what is not there. The parade cancellation does not exist in isolation. It is the visible peak of a military degradation that has been building for months. In the last 48 hours alone, Ukrainian drones struck the Tuapse refinery in Russia's Krasnodar region for the second time in weeks. The same facility that Ukraine turned into what witnesses described as a volcano visible from the Black Sea is burning again. Rosneft's strategic oil processing hub, One of the 10 largest refineries in all of Russia is on fire again. Regional authorities deployed more than 120 emergency workers and dozens of vehicles to contain the blaze. This is Ukraine's double-tap strategy in action. Hit a target. Let Russia begin repairs. Hit it again before those repairs are complete. Every strike on Tuapse is not just destroying oil processing capacity, it is destroying Russia's ability to believe that any facility inside its borders is safe from Ukrainian reach. And here's the part no one is talking about. Ukrainian long-range systems can now strike military targets approximately 1,750 kilometers deep inside Russian territory. That range has increased by more than 2.5 times since 2022. The Tuapse refinery is not on the edge of Ukrainian reach. It is well within the envelope that Ukraine has been systematically expanding for 4 years. On the same night as the Tuapse strike, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces hit an Iskander missile storage facility in occupied Crimea. From that base, Iskander missiles could reach Ukrainian front lines or rear cities in minutes. Ukraine destroyed the storage, destroyed the missiles before they could be fired, and released the video publicly to demonstrate that no Russian military asset in Crimea is beyond Ukrainian reach. The battlefield numbers from the last 24 hours alone tell a story that no parade could disguise. Ukrainian forces recorded 189 combat engagements in a single day. Russian forces deployed 8,409 kamikaze drones and conducted 3,019 shelling attacks. And through all of that pressure, Ukrainian forces destroyed 1,180 Russian personnel, 2 tanks, 3 armored combat vehicles, 54 artillery systems, and 1,775 unmanned aerial vehicles in a single 24-hour period. 1,775 drones destroyed in a single day. That is the scale of what Ukraine's air defense is absorbing and defeating simultaneously. The total Russian personnel losses since February 24th, 2022 now stand at 1,328,820, a number so large it is difficult to comprehend, and it grew by 1,180 yesterday alone. These are not random strikes. They are a systematic campaign to dismantle every Russian military capability that threatens Ukrainian territory, conducted by a military that has been sharpening its targeting precision for over 4 years. But the hardware losses are only part of what is destroying Russia's military from inside. Russia is running out of soldiers willing to fight, and the methods Russia is using to fill that gap are now becoming public in ways that the Kremlin cannot control. Ukrainian military intelligence has revealed that Russia is preparing to recruit thousands of foreign fighters in 2026, focusing on Central Asian countries and developing nations across Asia and Africa. Russia is turning to foreign mercenaries because its domestic recruitment pipeline cannot produce enough soldiers to replace the losses being suffered on the front. And within Russia itself, the recruitment crisis has reached a threshold that would have been unthinkable 12 months ago. Russia's Ministry of Defense has been forced to issue a public denial of reports that university students are being expelled from their programs and pressured into signing military contracts for service in unmanned systems units. Read that again. Russia's defense ministry issued a public denial, which means the reports were credible enough and widespread enough that the ministry felt compelled to respond. Students being expelled from universities and pushed into military service is the kind of story that spreads through Russian families regardless of what state television says. Every family with a son in university heard that story. Every one of them understood what it meant. Russia cannot fill its frontline units through voluntary recruitment. It cannot replace the losses it is suffering fast enough through normal enlistment. And now it is reaching into classrooms to find the bodies it needs to keep the offensive going. While Russia reaches into classrooms, Ukraine is accelerating in the opposite direction. President Zelensky has ordered a major expansion in the production and deployment of ground robotic systems, setting a target of at least 50,000 units for Ukraine's military this year. Unmanned ground vehicles. robotic systems that can operate in the kill zones that have been destroying Russian forces for months. Zelensky described unmanned ground systems as the next major step in warfare, following the widespread battlefield transformation produced by drone warfare. Russia is replacing its losses with foreign mercenaries and university students. Ukraine is replacing human risk with robotic systems. That divergence in military development tells you everything about which military is adapting to 21st century warfare and which is desperately trying to sustain a 20th century approach with bodies it is running out. This is what military desperation looks like, not on the battlefield, in the universities, in the conscription offices, in a defense ministry that has to issue public denials about stories it cannot fully suppress. The Victory Day parade without military hardware, the Tuapse refinery burning again, Iskander missile storage in Crimea destroyed, university students being pushed toward military contracts, Russia recruiting foreign fighters from Central Asia and Africa. These are not separate stories. They are the same story told from 5 different angles. The story of a military that entered this war believing it would end in days and is now, on the 1526th day of the conflict, canceling its most important annual display because it cannot spare the equipment. Ukraine destroyed that equipment, strike by strike, drone by drone, refinery by refinery, missile system by missile system. The military that was supposed to sweep through Ukraine in 72 hours is now hiding its tanks from the parade that was built to show the world those tanks exist. Here is what Russia's military collapse means for America, and it is the dimension that most coverage consistently fails to recognize. America did not cancel Russia's Victory Day parade. Ukraine did. But Ukraine could not have built the capability to do it without American support sustained over 4 years of this conflict. The drone technology that destroyed enough Russian armor to empty the parade route was developed with American backing. The long-range strike capability that hit Tuapse twice and struck Iskander storage in Crimea was scaled with American intelligence support and allied resources. The battlefield management systems that coordinate these simultaneous strikes across multiple targets in multiple regions were built on frameworks that American strategic partnerships made possible. What often gets overlooked is this: Russia entered this war with one of the largest military arsenals on Earth. It had more tanks, more artillery, more aircraft, and more missiles than any European military could match. The conventional wisdom in 2022 was that Russia's hardware advantage would determine the outcome. Ukraine changed the equation, not by matching Russia tank for tank, by building a drone capability that made Russia's tanks worthless. By developing a long-range strike campaign that reached inside Russia and destroyed the infrastructure sustaining those tanks, by creating a military so innovative and adaptive that it has forced Russia to cancel its own parade rather than reveal how little is left. Every American taxpayer who has supported Ukraine's defense should understand what their investment produced: a Victory Day parade with no military vehicles, a recruitment system so desperate it is reaching into university classrooms, a refinery burning for the second time, a missile storage facility destroyed before those missiles could reach Ukrainian cities. This is what American strategic commitment to an ally who fights with everything it has actually delivers over time, not just battlefield results. The systematic dismantling of the military mythology that Putin built his entire political identity on. Our men and women who trained Ukrainian forces, provided intelligence, and ensured weapons reached the front lines are part of every empty space on that Red Square parade route where Russian tanks should be standing. 80 years of military parades, 80 years of tanks rolling through Red Square on May 9th, 80 years of Russia displaying its military power to its own people and to the world as proof that the sacrifice of the Second World War was not wasted, that Russian military strength endured, that the state that emerged from that sacrifice remained undefeatable. This year, for the first time, the hardware is not coming. The current operational situation made it impossible. The current operational situation that Ukraine created with American support, the drones that turned Russian tanks into burning wreckage, The strikes that reached inside Russia and made every facility a potential target. The 4 years of grinding, innovative, relentless Ukrainian resistance that took the largest military spectacle in the world and stripped it of the machines that gave it meaning. Putin built Russia's national identity on Victory Day, on the tanks, on the missiles, on the parade that told Russians every year that their military was invincible. Ukraine just took the tanks away. Is Russia's military so degraded that even its most powerful propaganda tools can no longer disguise what has happened to it? Or does Putin still have hardware hidden somewhere that changes what the world is about to see on May 9th? Drop your answer below. I read every single comment. If you want daily coverage that does not sugarcoat what is actually happening, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I post every single day, and I am not stopping.